Nick Jones, welcome, brother.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Finally, we made it happen.
I know. I'm very excited for today's episode. And what I just mentioned to you off air before is a lot of people know you as the bodybuilder, right? Nick Jones, the bodybuilder.
I think so.
For me, it's like, who is Nick Jones though? Like, I want to dive into who you are. And I think that's why I love podcasting. I love connecting with people like yourself because I get to dive into who you are as the human being. So for people who don't know who you are, and for myself, what do we need to know about you to better understand the man that sits in front of us today?
Wow, that's a big open-ended question. I think, we all have a story and our story shapes us to a large degree. Something that, I grew up pretty tough, single parent back when there wasn't a lot of single parents around. So I was born in the UK, moved to Australia, to Adelaide when I was 18 months old with mum and dad and my older brother, Chris. He's 18 months older than I. And I grew up predominantly in Adelaide. Mum and dad split when I was 4. We went to America for a year for mum to study. So I did my first year of school in America, Washington, D.C., and I've got very fond memories of that. I had my 5th birthday there. Went back to London for 3 months, and it was my uncle's wedding, and came back and settled in Adelaide. Turned 6, and mum and dad had split, and I grew up so single parent. Didn't have much money. Mum studied beauty therapy when we went to the US, so she was full-time beauty therapy. My brother and I fended for ourselves quite a bit. Typical boys, we used to fight a lot, so I had pretty thick skin, although I was a sensitive kid, as all of us are when we're young. Yeah. You know, we all cop a certain amount of damage, right? So, and growing up with a single parent, without much money, you're probably exposed to a lot of stuff, and you stand on your feet a lot younger than other kids. And we lived in a pretty relatively nice area, as in it's a suburb called Camden Park, not far from Glenelg Beach. It's only like 5-6 minutes drive up the highway from Glenelg Beach, if anyone knows Adelaide. But we lived in a shitty part of Camden Park. Like, we had a little unit, mum did beauty therapy, so she used to sleep on the couch, and she set up her bedroom as a clinic so that she could be at home for us boys, because we were fighting and getting into all sorts of trouble when she was working full time and not getting home to, say, 6 p.m. So we grew up in that environment and moved to Housing Commission when I was 15, which again, you're in an environment where there's a lot of alcoholism, drug use, violence, poverty. But I think for me, I got into a lot of trouble as a teen, a lot of trouble. I was in and out of court. Assault charges, fighting, all sorts of stuff. So it wasn't, I was exposed to a lot, and I guess I was damaged a little bit again through that, which really led me at 17, 18 to very much a self-discovery, a very spiritual path, I would say. So it was that time that I learned that when you're saying what makes me human, we've got this personality and we have an ego, and we've got a certain amount of status, and people judge us on our achievements and how much money we make and the car we drive, the suburb we live in. So there's a very poor measure of success in my belief with society, very poor measure, even though I probably stack up okay with those measures. I quickly learned, after going through so much trouble, that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. It wasn't the other way around, doing meditation and rebirthing workshops and all sorts of what you think's crazy stuff in my teens, just looking for an answer, looking for some purpose, looking for some meaning. I didn't grow up with religion, which I'm actually grateful for because I found my own way. I didn't grow up with an old man around disciplining me. Mum did her best, but she was with 2 boys on her own with no family support, so she did her very best. So I think once I started picking up books and reading and meditating at the age of 17, 18. I had just turned 18, and it was a court case. It was for an assault charge as an adult. And I was working in the oil field at the time. So it was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I was working in the middle of Australia in the desert. And at the time, it was the boss up there was my girlfriend's dad. And I was a wild kid. He wanted to get me the hell away from his daughter, so he got me a job in the desert. He's a smart man. He's a good man too. He's a very good man. So I was in the desert for half the year, and I really, in a lot of European countries, young men have to join the military, and it turns them into men. It really turns me into men. For me, working in the oil field turned me into a man. I had to work with men. I was in the middle of the desert. I didn't really know the place. I didn't know the job, didn't know the people. So I was thrown in the middle of this situation where I felt like an alien, and it was a really steep learning curve and personal growth on a lot of levels. But because I'd been fighting and getting into all sorts of trouble, this court case was pending. So I went to court, and the charge was assault occasioning grievous bodily harm. And I remember standing in the box. Mum came to this one. I'd been to a bunch of child court hearings for assaults and so forth. And I remember standing in the box, and my solicitor said to me, before we go into court, I need you to pay me, because if you get locked up, you're not going to give me my money. And I'm like, shit, this is really serious. And this guy and he said to me, you need to, I think he could tell I was not a bad kid. I had a good heart. I always had a good heart. And I know that. And I think everybody does. I really believe everyone does, just some don't know it and some get too damaged. He said to me, go and get personal references from members of the community with some standing. So I went to my boss in the oil field, told him what had happened, and he wrote me a great reference, as well as a couple of other family friends who had some sort of standing in the community, business owners and coaches and that kind of thing. And thank God the judge read every single one of them. I sat there, I stood in the box. I stood in the box in the courtroom for 5-10 minutes maybe. He read every single one of them. It was about 6 of them, word for word. And I was sitting in the box. And then he said, stand up. And he said, I find you guilty of assault, occasioning grievous bodily harm. I just whacked a guy and knocked his tooth out. So it looked worse than sounded worse than what it was, because fighting was kind of normal back then in my environment. But I got one over him really quick, that guy. Anyway, he said, I find you guilty and I sentence you to 6 months imprisonment. Now, I nearly shit myself and weed myself in that moment. And then he paused for what seemed like an eternity. Mum starts crying. And then he said, but I'll suspend it for a period of 18 months on good behaviour. From that point on, I've never belted anybody, ever. I've never whacked anybody since then. I've done martial arts. I'm pretty strong sort of a guy. I've had situations. I've never whacked anyone since then. From that point on, and it was just before that court case, I'd read an article, and this is a very long-winded answer to your question, but they're just things that are coming to me as we talk, because you're asking me what shaped me into who I am today. And reading an article in a bodybuilding magazine when I was in the middle of the desert on meditation by Mr. Olympia at the time, well, in the late 70s, Frank Zane was Mr. Olympia. So I read an article by Frank Zane on meditation. Frank Zane impressed me because he was a bodybuilder who was the Mr. Olympia, the best bodybuilder in the world. So he was an extreme physical specimen, right? But he also had a degree in experimental psychology. So he was a very intellectual man. And he was heavily into Zen Buddhism. So he's a very spiritual man. And it really impressed upon me how he could look like that and be so intelligent and intellectual and be such a spiritual man. It really impressed upon me. And I tried meditation for the first time and never looked back. It might sound strange, but it changed me. The first time I sat in meditation changed me. When I opened my eyes, the world looked different, colors looked different. And it's not some mystical thing that happened. I think it happens to anybody that stills the mind, and it gives you a chance to go inside. And when you get to the core, there is peace. When you get beyond the emotional damage, when you get beyond the personality, when you get beyond the ego, when you get beyond the struggle, when you get beyond what you think's important and what other people think's important about you, you get beyond that and you go to source, and it's a very peaceful place. And I still do that practice to this day. And it's important for me to do that practice to this day. More important than ever now. With the crazy frenetic pace of day-to-day life, it's more important than ever now to sit in meditation every morning and have some gratitude work, and the rest is history. But between meditation and bodybuilding, the bodybuilding lifestyle, bodybuilding saved me. Bodybuilding saved me, from the bodybuilding magazine in that article to the daily practice of training, structuring my food, and from there it went on to wanting to compete and winning local shows in Adelaide to winning national shows to winning international competitions. I travelled the world with bodybuilding. I met some of my best friends through bodybuilding. I've had a great education through bodybuilding. I met my beautiful wife through bodybuilding. So bodybuilding has given me a life I've got so much to be grateful for, but it goes a lot deeper than building an 18-inch bicep.
And you could have gone down a totally different path.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a big fork in the road. When I was 17, 18. Big fork in the road.
Yeah, it's interesting having these conversations, considering like my upbringing, totally different. Like I had both my parents there.
Yeah.
I was kind of like protected and cuddled. And
yeah, which you want for your kids.
yes, to a degree.
Yes.
Because
yes,
as you said, you had to go to, the oil rigs or whatever to become a man essentially.
Absolutely.
For me, it was like, and I think a lot of boys in society now, and I think this is why there's a big issue with mental health with men, is that we're trying to find that transition from boy to man, and there's nothing really out there.
Agreed.
You look at traditional cultures, like indigenous cultures, right? You go out you go walk about, and you got to find yourself and become a man there.
That's it.
There's nothing really like that in society now. You said European countries, you got to go spend a year in the military.
That's right.
And I had another guy on the other week, and he spent a couple of years in jail, and he goes, I would suggest, obviously we don't want kids to go in jail, but that structure and that discipline to be in that system, even for a year, is going to turn any boy to a man. Yeah. And I think it's so important. But I want to ask you, like you being a dad yourself, how old is your son again? You say 8?
7, yeah, my little boy 7.
Have you thought about like how that transition for him from boy to man?
I haven't. You're making me think about it. Because, again, I spoke to my wife about it the other night. The American Indians had something similar to Walkabout. It was called the Vision Quest, where the boy of 12, 13 would head off on his own out into the forest, and he wasn't allowed to come back until he got his message from Spirit, and he was given his name. His adult names, whether it was White Cloud or Bear Cub or whatever it was, but they would know. They'd go out and they'd fast, and then they'd eat berries and kill animals, whatever they could do to survive, sit in meditation until they got their message from Spirit. So with my son, I don't know, and same as my daughters. I mean, my wife she's such a good mother with our kids and particularly with our daughters. But you're right. I will feel some sort of responsibility to support my son in turning him into a man. And I think, again, it's that dichotomy, isn't it, between supporting them, helping them, talking to them, nurturing them, and them getting out there and making mistakes and falling and hurting their knee and getting up. And it's a real dichotomy. So I haven't thought about what to do to turn him. I think, the Jewish people have the bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's involved in that, but I know it's around about that age of 13, becoming a man, And are they a man at 13? They go through some pretty heavy changes. I don't know if that's the time to do it. I think it's probably too young, but it's certainly a time to be communicating with them in an open manner.
Yeah.
To turn him into a man, sending him off to the oil field is not a bad thing. That worked for me. It certainly worked for me, and earned good money at the same time.
Yeah. Is he into like training and
He's 7. He plays soccer, so he's active. He's an active, healthy boy. Touch wood. He's a good boy, and he's very sweet boy. Got a very sweet nature about him. We're learning how to fight. He's done jiu-jitsu for about 12 months, and we're transitioning now into stand-up. So I'll probably take him to the zoo boxing gym. I took him to a kickboxing club the other night. That was good. So that's a maybe. But I'll certainly teach him how to fight and have that discipline. I look forward to the day where I take them all to the gym and train.
Yeah.
I look forward to that day with all of them. I think as a parent, we learn as we go as well.
That's it.
Like I'm reading a book on fatherhood at the moment, It wasn't, certainly becoming a dad wasn't on my radar because it had that family structure of mum and dad and children and white picket fence and home. And it wasn't on my radar because I didn't have that. But when I met my wife, she was the one, and it has happened. Basically, it happened for us. You'd think I would have worked out how it happened by now. I'm 52 years of age, but I don't know. Yeah, it happened. So I'm learning as I go, and I'm doing my best,
That's
like all of us.
do, right? As parents, we just got to do the best with the tools that we have.
Yeah,
And
and try and develop some more tools.
The tools come from our parents. If we didn't have that, especially both parents, like in your situation, we're not going to have all the tools.
I didn't get those tools from there. Those tools weren't that great. They didn't get handed down.
Exactly.
But I'm a pretty quick learner.
That's it. And that's why it's our responsibility as a dad to go out there and be, first of all, our best self, so then we can turn up as the best dad and best partner for our family. It's so essential.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, we're creating that foundation for them to grow on top of.
Absolutely.
It's so important. Coming back to your upbringing and not having, your dad really was he in your life at all?
Not really. We used to see him on weekends. So when I was 6 and we came back to Australia and saw him, I'm guessing they were together a few weeks or a month and then he was out. So we saw him a few weekends for a couple of years till he moved interstate. And then we'd see him on summer. We'd go up there for summer holidays, like for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't really connect with him. He was working full time, so I wouldn't see him anyway. And me and my brother would be stuck in whatever dive he was living in at the time, and we just play cricket in the backyard or whatever, and until he'd get home, and then we wouldn't do much anyway. So then I didn't see him for many, many, many years, and I wanted to see him, especially after this sort of spiritual quickening that I had in my late teens. I was in my early 20s. I'd come back from a overseas trip where I just travelled Europe and ended up in the US, and I came back and I really wanted to see him, and I couldn't find him. My brother bumped into him in a shopping centre 6 months later. So again, I connected with him and spoke to him and had my peace with him. So I was doing a bit of counselling at the time, and I was just trying to, we do so much personal work and we think we've dealt with certain demons, and then and it's good to, and you can think you have, and it's good, and you've let go of a certain amount. Then they rise to the surface. You go, bloody hell, I thought I dealt with that.
Yeah.
So I remember doing a bit of counselling work, and it was important at that time because I'd reconnected with my dad and sort of had it out with him, sort of in one way, and that was about it. Didn't see much more of him again till he passed away in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't see a lot of him. Wasn't that I didn't love my dad. Obviously, as a little boy, I loved my dad. And then I probably didn't have a whole lot of respect for the lack of responsibility to his family. For me, I learned a lot from him from that perspective. When I think about it now, I'm there for my kids.
You learn not what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the biggest things, I'm reading this book on fatherhood. Mark Wahlberg is one of the first to contribute. And the biggest thing for him is being present and being a good role model. If nothing else, if you're not a good communicator with your kids, be a great role model by doing good, by working hard, by having respect in public, by having manners, by loving their mother and having respect for their mother. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
So being present at their sport and at their school where you can, at their awards, being present and being a good role model. That were his 2 bits of advice, which resonate with me. I think they're 2 things that you have the power, you have the ability and responsibility to cover those things, and they may be the most important as a father.
100%. You mentioned a key word there of being present. For fathers out there that they're either working a 9 to 5 or they're building a business, at times it can be difficult to be present. And with yourself, with the business that you have, how did you balance, going after your goals, but still being as present as possible for your kids and for your wife?
That's a great question. And I'm probably I'm struggling with that at the moment, to be honest. I've been very, very good. Business has been very good for me for the last 10, 15 years, where I could be very present for the kids and I'd get up in the mornings and I'd make them brekkie and help get them ready, help my wife get the kids ready and do school drop-offs, 3, 4 mornings, 5 mornings a week sometimes, be at most of the after-school activities. Since COVID, business has been tough with the rising costs of ingredients and packaging and wages and freight and storage. It's gotten really a lot harder to make money. So I'm working harder now than I've probably ever worked. So I'm up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I'll go to City Gym and train a couple of clients. I do some coaching there, and I'll train myself, and then I'll do my Gentech work for the supplement company for the day. And I'm also launching a luxury men's skincare brand, Mr. Jones, in May. So that's been really busy as well. So between those two things, I'm really busy at the moment. And I said to the kids, Daddy, I just try and communicate as openly as I can with them. Dad's not going to be on board in the mornings because Daddy's got to earn extra money to pay the bills, to pay the house, to run the cars, to send you guys to the good school that we send you to. Daddy has to do that at the moment, so I'm not going to be here cooking your brekkie. They're cool. They get it. They're at an age where they get it. I've been lucky to be very present in their very early years. But again, because this is what do you value more? I said to my wife, because it's hard for her because she's got all 3 in the morning to get ready, to get up, to get ready for school, to feed, to make their lunches, to get them to school. So it's a load on her as well. It's like, well, we either have kids, you have 2 parents working, or you have 1, and he's got to bear a little bit more. And at the moment, Dad's got to do a few more hours. But it's really important to me. I mean, I could work 16 hours a day and make more money. It's important to me to try and finish at 3 and either go do school pickup or at least be involved in after-school activities. So I coach my son soccer. I take the girls to swimming, to dancing. I take Mariah to singing. So I make sure in the evenings I'm not doing seminars. I'm not out in the evening. So again, there's a balance there. There is a balance. And again, goals. And I'm lucky. I'm an older dad. I'm 52. So we didn't have our first child until I was 40.
Yeah, okay.
Which I'm grateful for, Nick. You know, I'm really grateful for that because really what I dealt with as a new dad at 40 and a husband at 40, 10 years earlier, I wouldn't have been as good at 30.
Yeah, because you were still like establishing everything then?
Because I was still very selfish. I was traveling the world with bodybuilding. I was doing the Mr. Universe. So it was work and bodybuilding and nothing else mattered. So it was a very, very selfish existence. And when you're an elite athlete, which bodybuilding is, there's so much training and nutrition goes into it, you have to be selfish. You have to be obsessed. You have to be selfish to reach a world level at something. You have to be. So I was very fortunate, really, the way things panned out. I was really, really fortunate. And I met my wife. I met Ange, when I was probably 36, 37. And the majority of my bodybuilding was done. I've competed since. I competed last October. I did a contest last October at 52.
You're looking good, man.
Thanks, man. I keep ticking along. It's bodybuilding for life. For me, it's bodybuilding for life. That's my life sentence.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. Absolutely a lifestyle. And these days, because we do have so much going on and so many pressures, my training is very meditative. My training is for here and for here. This is just like the cool side effect.
Yeah.
But the training is my peace. That's where I find my peace and everything becomes clear again. My feet are on the ground. I'm grounded. I have a lot more clarity once I've done my training. So that's why I get it done in the morning as well. So I do some work. I do a couple of clients in the morning, get my training done. I'm good for the day.
I'm curious. For someone that's in, say, their mid-20s, they've become a dad, but they're also starting a business, what advice would you give to them to, in a way, get the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
Because obviously you want your business to grow, but you want to be present and have a connection with your family, because I went through a period where I was very selfish and I was like, I'm just going to put all my energy into the business, and I kind of neglected my family for a while until I had a conversation with someone and they said, all right, cool, you can go all in your business and you may achieve everything, but when you're on the top of that mountain and you look back and there's no one there, is it really going to be worth it?
It's a good question. So, and that's probably my biggest piece of advice, because the way I make a lot of decisions these days is the situation and the opportunities I have and what's on the table here now. How will I feel about this decision when I'm on my deathbed? Because when you listen to older people, when you're on your deathbed, you don't say, I wish I spent more time in the office. The guys that have spent 16 hours a day working and made millions and have big portfolios, a lot of them, the regret is, I didn't spend enough time with my family. I didn't spend enough time and uphold friendships. I didn't spend enough time doing those important things, because all of this stuff that I've built and got, all of this stuff, I'm not taking it with me. I'm not taking it with me. All I'm taking with me, really all you're taking with you is the love that you have in your heart. That's all you're taking with you. And the only thing you're really leaving behind apart from those possessions to your loved ones is the memories and how you made them feel. Your legacy lives on through them. And I think, again, when you read Mark Wahlberg's thing of being present in your children's lives is so crucial, and then being a good role model. So I think it's a balance the whole way through. And I think that balance to be mindful every morning on what it is you want to achieve for the day, focus on what you're grateful for, know that you're going to do your best to connect with your children today. Know that you're going to do your best to connect with your wife today. Know that you're going to be the best businessman you can today. Know that you're going to look after your health and well-being by doing your exercise and eating well and being hydrated today. Then when you get to the end of the night, you can reflect the end of the day, because the days go by quick. The moments pass quick, and if you're not in the moment and you're not appreciating the moment, you're not living it, which is hard to do because a lot of the time we're living in the future. And a lot of the time we're doing that, we have anxiety about the future and fear of the future. And then if we're living in the past, we have guilt from the past on things we did or didn't do. It's like, be present. Be present. Know what it is you're trying to do today. Know what it is you're trying to do today. And at the end of the day, you look back and go, sometimes you win and you get a balance in the day. Sometimes you don't. I don't get a balance every day. I try to get home to connect with the kids, whether it's their sport or after school activities, doing reading before bed, cooking dinner and sitting at the dinner table. I try to connect with them. I try to connect with my wife every day. And again, it's hard. Our wives are busy, especially if they're full-time mums. We think, we're the one doing all the hard work and she's just, that's not a job. You can do it in your pajamas, doing the washing. And the mental stress that women take on with children, we don't fully understand because we don't think like that as men. We don't process things like that as men. They seem to live with a lot more anxiety than we do. If there's an issue, we try and fix the problem. We plan on how to fix it so we don't have to deal with it again. Women are wired very differently to us, and I find marriage hard, and I speak to other men as well, and I'm certainly not an expert in this space, but I know what my wife needs is for me to shut my mouth and listen. And what's important to her is important to her. And even if it's not important to me, I better make sure that I make her think that it's important to me, because that's connection from the wife. So connect with the kids, connect with my wife, be the best businessman I can today. And again, there's a Greek word, my wife's Greek, and I love the Greek culture. There's a Greek word called philotimo. Philotimo, beautiful word. It means that if you have philotimo, you have integrity, you have honor. These things are important. These things are so important to me today as I get older and I make these decisions based on my deathbed. What's important? Not getting money, not getting something over someone to get money. Not fucking important. These things, the cars and the properties, and not fucking important. Not important. Integrity and honor is what's important. So a young guy at 25, you got a lot on your plate, guys. You got a lot on your plate. I feel for you. At 25, if I had young children and was starting business with a young family, fucking hard. Real fucking hard. I get it. I feel for you, but it can be done. Most men that we know that have become successful, that were in that position, lost their family. Most. Half of them. It's 1 in 2. Half of them lost their family. Half of them did. To me, that's not fucking worth it. It's not worth it to me. I'm 52 and I, more than anything, want to be present for my kids. And even it's hard at my age, and I'm not established financially. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm okay. I'm not, I think we're all struggling to make ends meet these days, especially in Sydney. But again, I could work 16 hours a day and make a lot more money than I make. I won't. My connection with my children, having integrity, having honor, these are the things that are important to me, and I know they will be on my deathbed. I have the foresight enough to know. And this is something interesting, having that foresight. I was able to develop that through training. There are many days we don't feel like training. Many days in my life when I'm scheduled to go and train, I haven't felt like training. But I always go, if I don't get out of bed and do this thing, or if I don't get to the gym and train, I know how I'll feel in an hour and a half's time if I do it, and I know how I feel in an hour and a half's time if I don't do it. So make the fucking choice, have some self-discipline, and just rock up. Rock up to work, rock up to the gym, rock up to your training, rock up to jiu-jitsu, rock up to the practice. Just fucking rock up. And if you have to, start going through the motions. Even now, there are days where I'm tired, man. I'm up at 4. There are days when I'm tired and I don't want to train. Same thing. I go, that's all right. I don't beat up on myself. I don't go, come on, pussy. You know, I don't do that. Like, that's okay. You're a bit tired. Just go through the motions. Just move. Get some blood around the body. It'll be good for you. You're going to feel great in an hour or hour and a half's time. You'll feel so much better. So I do. I start going through the motions. Lo and behold, I have a great workout 3/4 of the time. Great workout. So, you know, it's that practicing of the self-discipline and knowing what's important. So every day you know what's important, guys. You know, be the best dad you can. Be the best husband you can. Be the best businessman you can. Be the best athlete you can be. You just, and that's all you can do. And don't bullshit yourself. And this is the only place where I think happiness is a result of that. It's a struggle. It's fucking hard. There's ups, there's downs. You are not going to feel motivated every day. But if you get up, just rock up and make those intentions clear. Your intentions are your biggest wealth. Your intentions are your wealth. Having the discipline to follow through on those intentions is a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. But this is where the juice is. This is where happiness comes from. To chase happiness and chase happiness, probably a mistake. To have integrity and honor, do what you say you're going to do. To rock up and do the fucking work even when you don't feel like it. To be clear about what it is you're trying to achieve. Connect with your kids. Connect with your wife. Be the best businessman you can. Have philotimo. You know, to fucking have integrity. Have integrity. Have honor. In situations, and I couldn't have done it when I was that young. What I do now of how will I feel about this on my deathbed? Like if I'm sitting around taking drugs in bad places with bad people, you know, I'm no angel. I've been to hell and back in some cases and situations, and it's hard then to go, how will I feel about this on my deathbed? You know, when you become a father, this is something when you become a father, actually, that when we're kids, a lot of the time we want to make our folks proud. That's a lot of the driving force of motivation. When I became a parent, I want to make my kids proud of their dad. You know, it's an old saying that you are your daughter's first love and your son's first hero. Don't fucking shatter that. The biggest responsibilities of our life, I believe. And I believe it comes from the Greek thing. They're so big on family. I didn't get it when I was growing up. It's a blessing. Children are the biggest blessing and the biggest and greatest responsibility we can have. Don't fuck it up.
Man, I can feel the emotion.
Yeah.
I can see that it means...
My kids, man, my kids are my heart, you know. My kids are my heart. It's funny when you first have a child, it's a hard thing to explain. So my friends that, you know, they're pregnant for the first time, and I don't even try and explain it to them. But if I can explain what having children is to me, and it's like your heart gets a whole lot bigger when you have a child.
It's a whole different level of love. It's a whole
different level of love. We develop this, we don't even develop it. We experience an unconditional love. We experience it. We've never experienced that before. We can say we have. We haven't. So we experience unconditional love and your heart kind of gets bigger. And then you have a second child. Wait, you have a second one. Your heart gets bigger again. It was just when you think it can't get any bigger. I've had my third child, my little boy, and it's like I'm done. It's like my heart belongs to them. I'm so vulnerable. As a father. I can't imagine rolling in the underworld, you know, in those worlds and having children because you are so vulnerable when you have children. I feel it every day. Yeah, I feel it every day, the vulnerability.
What was it like for you? You know, you had two girls first and then that boy came along. What was that moment like? Be like, oh, yes, a little boy.
It's funny, all my friends, when Ange fell pregnant for the third time, they're like, oh, you want to get your boy, you want to get your boy. And I'm like, oh, you know, no, not necessarily like it. And when we first saw the obstetrician, he said it'll probably be a girl. And when he looked at the scan before we had the test, it'll probably be a girl. And for about 3 seconds, I was disappointed. And it wasn't like, because when my mate said, you got to have a boy, and I go, why? Why? Tell me why. Like, I'm not challenging it. Why do you think? Well, you know, your family name's got to live on. So, man, my surname's Jones. I think the Jones has got to survive. It's got to be all right. I'm not worried about that. And then I kind of started thinking about having a boy. I thought, yeah, it'd be really cool. I can teach him how to play footy. But then the girls do that now, and we can ride motorbikes, and the girls do that now. And then when I found out it was a guy, I was disappointed for about 3 seconds. And then I was like, be more love for Dad. When Dad's 80, I'm going to have 3 of them looking after me, rubbing my feet and taking care of their old man. So the girl, because it's funny, when you look at it, a lot of the time the boys go off and try and conquer the world, you know, and the girls stay closer to home and they bring children around and grandchildren. And so I started thinking like that. I just thought when the doctor said that, we thought it was going to be a girl for, I can't remember if it was a week or so before we had the first harmony test. But when the little boy came, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like, yes, my boy. It wasn't that, because I was happy with another girl as well. They're so sweet, you know, and you're their first love. It's a different connection as well. But then having a boy, and it just balanced out the energy in the house a little bit, and yeah, it's a different connection with a boy. It's a different connection with my son. And I wouldn't have said it before. And it's not better or worse, but having both, the boys and the girls, is the best thing ever. And I'd have another one. My wife would have another one too, but I don't know if I could afford it. I don't know if I could do the stress, man. I could, but I think we're done now. He's 7. I think, it's like it's a lot. Every time one's a lot. It's a big change to your lifestyle. And then 2 seems like a lot. And then 3 seems like a lot. But it's funny, when you've got 3 and then you take 2 for the day out to the shops or whatever, you go, this is easy. I wasn't worried about it. I had 2 before. I thought it was a lot. It's not much. So it's funny, you know. They're great. Best.
I think I told my partner, I go, I think we're going to go for 4.
You're going to go for 4. I reckon 4 is a good number.
The first 2 you
big
kind
car,
of
though.
Stuff up a bit, and then the second 2 you can you know what you're kind of doing.
True. The third one's a big change.
Yeah.
I was a different man and a much better father when we had our little boy.
It's
much better. You get better with everyone. You get better and better and better. You can't beat experience, huh?
That's it. Yeah, parenthood is the best. Even the girls are awesome. Like, they're just so loving. Like the other night, man. The storm came through. And my daughter woke up at 11:30, just crying and scared of the storm. And so we're cuddling in bed.
Yeah.
And she's like, her name's Eliana. So she talks to herself in third person for some reason.
Oh, really?
She goes,
that's funny.
Eliana's crying. And then just massive cuddles and kisses in bed. And it's just like,
this melts you.
It's the best. Like, I want you to stay this small forever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, I was like that with my third. I didn't want him to grow up. I wanted him to stay a little puppy. But the girls, I wanted to grow up and run to me when I got home and jump into my arms. And so that's funny you say that. Yeah, you must be advanced as a dad.
Do you said you love having both, you know, girls and your boy, but do you find it difficult in the world now where you're trying, like you have your girls, but you want to also instill those masculine traits into your boy as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. And it's a real minefield these days, you know, with the community at large becoming so woke and being politically correct all the time, and you have to really watch what you say in a lot of situations. You got to read the room before you open your mouth and speak your truth. It's just hard these days. So even with a podcast, I try and be as open as I can, but I'm still mindful of, will I get slagged for saying this or saying that? But I think the good thing for us is, I mean, again, I've never been big on religion, but we're involved in the Greek Orthodox Church, and the thing I love about the Greek community that I've been exposed to is those families, and this has been the biggest thing with schooling with my kids as well. They're in such a good school now. In other schools, if you don't know the parents and the community, you don't know who your kids are hanging out with. And that's who has the biggest influence on us. Who we spend our time with has the biggest influence on us I think at all ages as human beings. And when you don't know the other parents and you don't know what's going on in their home, to let your kid go and hang out at their house, you don't know what's on the TV, you don't know what uncles or aunties are coming over or older brothers or sisters, or you just don't know. So in this Greek community, you kind of know at least, I don't know these people well, but I know at least they've got similar values. They've got similar values where boys become men. And it's not the gay or trans or straight but the boys become men. There's a very clear distinction between right and wrong, having philotimo, having respect, having honor, being honest. I'm very lucky in the school that they're in. We've got a great school where they get taught these great principles. So it's a big head start. We teach them the same stuff at home. The same stuff. And I don't think it's that difficult when, because the home is their base. This is where we're close, we're together. I'm there. I'm not working 16 hours a day. I'm there on purpose. My wife's a great mother. She's very staunch, my wife. She's if anybody knows Greeks, my wife's mum's Athenian. So my wife's Athenian, really. So she's a very strong woman. Beautiful, stunning looking woman, but strong. And so she's a very good role model for the kids, good disciplinarian, as I think she's better than I am in some respects. I think keeping the kids on this sort of straight and narrow, it helps a lot when they're in the right school. Helps a lot when they're around other families with similar values. I think it can't be undervalued. You talk when we're talking all these motivational speakers and business coaches, and they talk about your peers, and you show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. I'll tell you what you'll be like. Show me the 5 people you spend the most time with, and it's so true. So I think it's really important as parents to make sure your kids are in good environments around good people with similar values to you. So there's a lot that goes without saying. Again, monkey see, monkey do. It's not what we tell them so much, it's what they see. It's what they see. That's why, thank you, Mark Wahlberg, being present and being a good role model. Monkey see, monkey do. They don't do what we say, they do what we do. So make sure they're around good people with similar values to you that do similar things that you do and say similar things you say. It's an old Greek saying, and it's funny because I learned a lot of the Greek stuff through strength coaching, through progressive overload and maybe the Spartans were the first bodybuilders. A friend of mine opened Spartans gyms in Melbourne because he believed, and he wasn't Greek at all, Aussie guy, Don Marnie, he believed the Spartans were the first bodybuilders. But the Greeks would say it takes a whole village to raise a child. And to me, that is that situation. Make sure that the people, the school, the sporting clubs, make sure that you put them in an environment where they have similar values as much as you can. Hard these days. That's what's hard because you don't really know people, but you get a vibe and you get to know the other parents, talk to the other parents. Don't sit back, talk to them. You're good at talking to people. You got a podcast, Nick, so you're very good at talking to people. Be wise, put them in the right environments, put your kids in the right environments. That's why I like the martial arts too. I like that, the discipline, the coach or the sensei is teaching them values as well as how to defend themselves.
Yeah, that's what it's about, surrounding yourself with the right people and 100%. Instilling those strong values that they're going to take on for the rest of their life. 100%. You mentioned your wife a few times throughout this podcast, and there was a quote that I found on your page where it said, "If you're a beast, you need to marry a beast."
I got it from David Goggins.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got it from Goggins.
What role has, your wife's name's Angela, correct?
Angela, yeah.
What role has Angela played in you in the development of the man that you are now?
I think as a father, massively. I think in business, for me, I'd already started Gentech before I met Ange. I was already a world champion bodybuilder and a Mr. Universe. I never won the universe, but I was top 6 for like 5 years, 6 years in a row. So I think those things I was pretty well established again because I was selfish. I was working in bodybuilding, working training before I met Ange. So I was established there. I think Ange has had a very powerful impact on me in teaching me family values because, again, no disrespect to my mum, she did her best, but she was on her own in Australia. Our family were in England and in the US, so we had no family here. It was mum on her own with myself and my brother. doing it all on her own. So and my wife Ange, my in-laws are the best. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, they stayed together. They're typical Greek in the way that they wanted the best for their kids. Dad worked hard, Papa, he worked hard. He did it tough, and my mother-in-law worked as well. But she was just an on-board mum, and she is as a grandmother as well. She's on board, dude. She would take a bullet for my kids. My mother-in-law, she's the best. So I think my wife has those qualities. So I see it in my wife. She's such a dedicated mum, whatever it takes. Rain, hail, shine, any time of the day or night, kids need her. If they're sick, they got flu, they got colds, croup, whatever, there's no she'll be right. There's none of that. None of that. She's on board 100%. So again, monkey see, monkey do. The family values that I've picked up from my wife. And she holds a very high bar, man. She has a very, very high standard for me. And I think I do for myself, but I didn't have that standard for myself as a father and as a husband when I met Angela, because I'd never had those roles. I'd never had to step up in that capacity. As a bodybuilder, high standards. As a businessman, high standards. A worker, high standards. I grew up playing AFL, so I was always the captain of the footy team and best and fairest and captain of the cricket team. And so I always had high standards. It was like a natural, strong will. And I think that will probably came from not having a dad around. It was probably like, look at me, Dad. My dad wasn't watching me play footy like the other dads or watching me play cricket. Mum wasn't there much either. She was working to make ends meet. So it was probably a lot of that. But I think it's an inbuilt will as well as conditional. It's that nature or nurture. It's both. So I probably had a good mix of both, like parents not being around and taking notice, not being present, and I wanted them to, so I was performing, so it was a bit of that. So I think my wife, she has a very high standard, very high bar, which I'll probably never meet. I'll never meet that, no, it's she's great, and she doesn't hold me to a higher standard than what she has for herself as a mother. So I think Angela's had such a massive impact on me in understanding what family means, what family values mean, what's important when it comes to family. I think she's had such a powerful effect on that. And of course, when I've competed really only twice since we've been together. We competed in 2009 together, and then I had a long break, 10 years off till 2019. I was making money, buying a home for our family. We're having kids. She competed a few times and I supported her. So when I made the decision in 2019 to make a comeback, I trained the whole time. I was doing a lot of martial arts, weight training. 2019, and then just last year, 2023, I did the IFBB Mr. Universe. And both times at the start of the prep, I said, look, are you on board? I'm going to have to train hard. And again, it wasn't so much family that suffered. They suffer a little bit. The last 4 weeks, you're a bit of a shit dad just because your energy levels are so low. But she picked up the slack, so she's been on board. When I've needed to be on board and support me, I've done that. But I certainly will do that with her as well when she competes and she's chasing a personal goal.
How long have you guys been together?
15, 16 years maybe.
Yeah, okay. How do you keep a relationship alive during that period? Because
good question. Especially
in society now, there's a lot of separations. When kids are involved, sometimes a lot of your energy goes to your kids instead of your partner. How, for you, what's your secret to keeping it alive?
It's a hard balance, man. It's just, I think the main thing is to realize it is hard. It's hard. And don't look for the easy way out. Don't look for the pussy way out. If you're in an environment where it's a no-win situation and you can't resolve it and you're fighting in front of the kids, and especially if there's domestic violence and you cannot sort that out, you're best off getting out, But to keep it together takes a lot of strength, takes a lot of understanding, takes a lot of, for me, and my wife would probably disagree with this, is me waving the white flag and being okay with not being right all the time. I think that's a massive thing. You don't have to be right all the time.
As men, we always want to be right.
Always want to be right, yeah.
And fix everything.
Yeah, and fix everything. They don't want us to fix everything. They want our time. They want our time. They want our attention. Like our children, they want our time. And they deserve our time. We're married. We're in this together. We want them to not pander to our needs, but know what it is that we need. Like, and again, like we're out in the world as men and we're having not so much disagreements, but challenges with business and with work colleagues. And we're out there doing it. We're doing our best and we don't want to come home and have another challenge and fight. But our wife deserves our time and attention. And this is where, and I'm not perfect at it. There are times where I'm like, babe, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. And she's sick of me being tired. She didn't marry a guy just to be, have him be tired all the time. So it's like sometimes I've got to ante up and sit and shut the fuck up and listen and ask her how she is and really want to know how she is. And again, because I blow all my energy in the day. I really do. I'm up at 4. I'm coaching people. I'm out doing Gen Tech. I'm out developing products for Mr. Jones and talking to people. And I've got my social media team and got my manufacturing team and my administration team in the office and our dispatch team in the warehouse. And there's a lot going on. So I'm exhausted by the end of the day. But to be mindful of the fact that you gotta give her some time and attention, not see her as, oh, fuck, here she goes again. Which is, that's an easy thing to do. Like, guys, it's all hard. It's fucking hard. I think, I used to read books by a guy called Stuart Wilde, and Stuart Wilde was very much into metaphysics, quantum physics, and the power of thought. And he used to say, and I used to believe it, life doesn't have to be a struggle. Life's like walking through a valley on a sunny day. It can be like that if you believe it enough. You believe it enough, but it's like, through experience, I find in this day and age, it's hard. It's hard to make money. It's hard to buy a home for your family. And to me, the two most important things for me as a dad and a husband is, for my kids especially, is having or creating a loving home and giving them a great education. They're my two things that I made very clear, very, very clear when I had kids. It came to me. It wasn't like I've read this in a book, so I need to do these two things. That came to me and I thought everything else is bullshit. Everything else is discussional and conversational, but giving them a loving home and a great education. That's my Ferrari there. That's my Ferrari. I'll invest in those two things as a priority before everything else. I don't have a Ferrari. I don't. My kids are in a good school. We have a good, loving home. But then the loving part of the home, it just takes time. It takes love. It takes love. It takes love. Not in the romantic sense, love as in the unconditional love for your children. Yes, the romantic love, you still have to keep that alive with your wife. So, we have date nights. I would love to have more date nights. I love having a date night with my wife because it's funny, guys, when you get your wife away from the kids and it's just the two of you, that's when you realize why you fell in love. It's the stress of the family unit that gets you going at each other a little bit. But once you get together, you're like, and then you feel it. You're like, fuck, you do actually love me. You actually really do love me and I actually like hanging out with you. You're really cool. I like it. But when the kids are around, it's a lot tougher and you've got these roles that you're performing. So I don't know that there's a secret apart from it's fucking hard and it takes effort and it takes you waving the white flag sometimes. Even sometimes when you think you're right, fuck it, is it really that important? Is it really that important to go to war over? Like we're meant to be on the same team, and it's just very, very easy to get caught up in the self and you're stressed and you're trying to make ends meet and I'm working my ass off for you and you don't appreciate me. She's like, I'm looking after our kids in our home and you don't appreciate me. It's I don't have the secret or the answer, but to, like anything, communication and listening, not just, there are times, and I'm not perfect at this, don't think that I've got this down pat. I haven't got it down pat. There are times that you want them to know how much you're struggling and how tough it is and how much you're suffering, and we all do on some level. All of us do on some level and at different levels at different times, right? And you want them to know that and support you, but you've got to be able to do that for her as well. You
100%.
have to be able to do it for her. It's hard, man. I don't have the answer. Hey, I reckon if you work it out, if you really work it out, and if I really work it out, you get struck down by lightning before you can tell another bloke. I reckon you will. So maybe I don't want to fully work it out, but I'll try.
The thing is, we choose our own hard, right?
We do.
We can either, be selfish and go down the line of just focusing all on business, and the hard bit is not having a connection and losing your family.
Yeah.
Or you can go down the path of being present for your family and having that there, but not being so successful in your business.
Yes.
It's like, what path do you want to go down? And I think as a dad, and what I've come to learn, because I went through a period of, this is hard, this is tough, trying to balance both. What I realized is, if you have the awareness to realize like this is tough, it means you actually care about it and you're actually showing up.
Yep.
Because
100%.
it's easy to just go all in one direction, right? For you to actually put energy into both things, it may take longer, but that's where the fruit is.
Exactly. It is. That's where the fruit is. See, I get it from bodybuilding. All my analogies come from bodybuilding. The fruit, the juice, the real juice is in the hard training. The harder I train, the more peaceful I feel. That's the whole point. It's in the doing what's tough. That's where you build your true self-esteem, your true self-confidence, your true self-worth. It's in the rocking up and doing the fucking hard stuff, not shying away from it. It's in the doing it. That's where the juice is. That's where all the good stuff is. It's all there. But we shy away from it. Fuck, it's too hard. I'm going to sit on the couch and play PlayStation. Nah, do what's hard. Do it. And you will feel so much better about yourself.
100%. Take me back to a period in your life. You described it as like probably one of the most depressing periods of your life where you had chronic fatigue. You actually described it or defined it as a failure within your life. Why?
Did I describe it as a failure?
Yeah, I listened to one of your podcasts. I think it was Andrew May.
Oh, right.
You said you seen that as a failure within your life going through that period.
At the time I did. Actually, at the time I did. Not now I don't. I think if you haven't been through it, I don't want to be negative, but I think everyone goes through, I think all men go through something hard. I can't speak, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for that, but I think we all go through something tough, some sort of breakdown, some sort of emotional breakdown, mental breakdown. I think we all go through some sort of crushing. I think we all do. But again, it's important. It's important because that's when you learn what not to do. That's when you learn what's important. And that's when you learn how to put things in practice to make it sustainable. So for me, I was training and competing at a world level year after year after year, chasing this Mr. Universe title. I'd started a company. I'd started Gentech. So this is 99. I started Gentech. 99 was my third Mr. Universe. So I was going so hard with business, getting the business off the ground. I was going hard with my bodybuilding, and I was in a relationship that I couldn't see as long-term. It was long-term, but I couldn't see the future in it. So there was a lot of unsustainable lifestyle choices. To train that hard, unsustainable. I trained too hard for too many years. The force feeding, the chemical stress from the force feeding, it wasn't drugs and alcohol, but it was force feeding, over supplementing, the anabolics, which again, I was never crazy. I was always educated with what I would do, but I was extreme in the force feeding, in the amount that I trained.
It all adds up.
It all adds up. So, there's 3 types of stresses that cause a breakdown, that cause dis-ease. There's 3 types of stress that cause dis-ease. And it taught me this. This is what it taught me. There are 3 types of stress that cause dis-ease. Mental and emotional stress, physical stress, chemical stress. Mental and emotional stress, I just started a company. I was in an emotional relationship that I couldn't see long-term. It wasn't the right relationship for me. It was a relationship of convenience. And, that's not good. So I had a massive amount of mental and emotional stress, starting a company particularly. Physical stress, I was training far too hard for too long. But I don't regret it. I don't regret any of this by any means, because I tested my boundaries, tested my limits, and it's a good thing to do ultimately. So I had a massive amount of physical stress. I mean, to cause disease, falling off a ladder is physical stress, being in a car accident is physical stress. Not exercising is a physical stress. Exercising too much, physical stress. And then chemical stress can be drugs and alcohol, will cause disease. Doesn't have to be just that, can be Not enough food caused disease. Too much food, the wrong sort of food, not enough water, the air that you breathe, chemical stress. So for me, I had 3 types of chemical stress at maximum: mental and emotional, physical and chemical. Caused disease, caused chronic fatigue syndrome. I'd had it before, stemmed from glandular fever. I was a young teenager with glandular fever. So my first bout of chronic fatigue, I was 21. Glandular fever at 13, chronic fatigue at 21, then the chronic fatigue at 31. And it was horrible. It was a horrible, horrible time. So from going in the 2002 Mr. Universe, getting second place, I still didn't win it, and I'd been trying so hard. So it was a big letdown for me to get second in 2002. It was January 2003. I couldn't get out of bed. I could not face another year. I could not get up. I couldn't get up. I was sleeping 16 to 20 hours a day, trying to train still in my waking hours, couldn't train. And it was a long road to recovery, the chronic fatigue. But a lot of people never fully recover from it, from chronic fatigue syndrome. I was lucky. I had a great chiropractor, osteopath, naturopath, kinesiologist, acupuncturist, Dr. Frank Marcelino in Adelaide. So he taught me a lot of this about disease. I did everything I could do, from the head work and counselling to the cutting the exercise way back. I just swam and walked until I could get back into the gym. No anabolics, smaller amounts of food that were on my blood type, no stimulants of any sort, because as bodybuilders we'd use different forms of pre-workouts. Back then they were pharmaceutical pre-workout products, ephedrine based. So, my bodybuilding, my natural bodybuilding journey I started competing in drug-free competitions initially when I was a teenager and junior. And then I went across to IFBB and NABA, and then I went full circle. So 2006, after 4 years of being out of it and having the chronic fatigue, 2006, I did the Musclemania Australia and then World Championships as a drug-free athlete, anabolic-free athlete, and recovering from chronic fatigue. And that was a great journey. So I think I won that as well. I won the World Championships in Universal Studios in the Fear Factor auditorium where Joe Rogan used to host. So I won the World Championships there, the overall, in 2006. But yeah, it was like it's an old cliche. We learn the most through our failures. It's an old cliche. We learn more through our failures than successes. For me, that was a big learning on creating and making lifestyle choices that were then sustainable. Understanding those 3 stresses, mental and emotional, physical, chemical. So again, when I look at it now, if I'm really stressed mentally with business, financial stress, emotionally, if I'm really stressed emotionally and mentally, my training backs off. The physical stress backs off. It becomes lighter, becomes therapy in the gym. I make sure that I'm getting nice and hydrated. I make sure I'm eating more fresh food, not just heavy proteins and carbs, more fresh foods, get plenty of essential fats in my diet. So depending on the different stresses, you can't have full-on stress in all 3 areas. You can't have massive mental and emotional stress, which most of us do these days. You got a family, you got a business, you got a lot of mental and emotional stress. Physical stress, we need some exercise. Don't have no physical stress, we need a bit. Stress creates growth. We all need a bit of stress. We need a bit, creates growth. And then the chemical stress, you've got mental and emotional, don't start hitting the bottle. Don't start taking drugs. Don't start binge eating and eating crap food. That's when you got mental and emotional stress, that's when you got to look after yourself chemically. That's when you got to look after yourself with some light exercise. Get up 30 minutes before everybody else and go for a power walk in the morning. Get up and go to the pools and have a swim 45 minutes before the rest of the house. Do some light exercise. If you've got massive stress, do some exercise. Do some. It's critical. So the chronic fatigue, it was created through lifestyle, background in glandular fever, Epstein-Barr virus, but ultimately it served me. Served me in the end. I learned a hell of a lot.
And it comes down to having that awareness around yourself too, to be able to pick up on those
100%.
signs within your life. Yeah, a lot of us are very unaware. And I was curious, you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, throughout your upbringing, there was a lot of damage through what happened. Do you believe in, that deep damage coming up physically? Like, do you feel like that played a role in your chronic fatigue as well? Like, because you may have done healing, but you may not have healed at the deepest level.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, I think a lot of memories still come back. A lot of bad memories still come back, and they probably will till the day I die. I guess I haven't oppressed them. I've dealt with them and done a certain amount of healing from them. But again, they are lessons you've learnt to not recreate with your own family. You know, so the fact that they still pop up, did it contribute to my chronic fatigue? I think not so much. Not so much. It was more the pushing myself to an extraordinary level year
but then
after
you
year
think
after
about
year
it,
after year.
right? You're pushing yourself to kind of prove a point to yourself after everything you've gone through. So subconsciously, it probably is a link between the two.
There would definitely be a link. And when I first had the glandular fever, there was a link to my dad, to my upbringing. There was a link, 100% when I first got the glandular fever. And there's a link between the glandular fever and the chronic fatigue. There's a link between that. So I think, yes, have I dealt with it fully? I don't know how you do deal with it fully. I don't know. I've tried. I've certainly tried. And it's like you say, the awareness is something that allows you to not make those same mistakes and to not create that same situation, to know how that affected you as a kid. You know quite clearly. And again, I'm not angry at my parents, my dad or my mum. I'm not angry at them because it's that they were, again, this is not out of a book either. They were doing the best that they could with what they knew. And maybe they didn't have the self-awareness for whatever reason to pull it up and make a change. You know, so it's like there's a lot of changes to my family history that I'm making consciously, you know, because I know if I'm around for my kids, if I'm present for my kids, if I'm loving with my kids and supporting of my kids, they're going to turn out as even better person than I am. You know, well, I hope they do. I'm giving them every opportunity to.
I think makes the world like a beautiful place right now. If we went back, you know, the cycles would generally just continue, right?
Absolutely.
But we're in a generation or a society right now where we can draw the line in the sand because there is so much knowledge, so much information out there. There's so many opportunities out there as well, and it allows us to turn up as our best self for our kids, for our family, and break those cycles through doing the work on ourselves.
Yeah.
Because even when you were younger, you know, you mentioned meditation, probably people would have thought, fuck, who's this weird guy?
I never told anyone about that. Rebirthing and don't tell anyone about that.
No one did that stuff, right?
No, that's right.
But that's the stuff that allows you to work through what's inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many of us
Absolutely.
use distractions. We're on screens all day. We're listening to something because we're scared to actually have those conversations with ourselves.
Absolutely. I'm not. Are you a Bible reader?
No, but
No,
it's a funny thing. I'm in a period in my life now where I'm intrigued and open-minded to religion and the lessons from the teachings. Yeah, because I believe there is a lot of teachings that you can implement into your life.
Absolutely.
So it's.
And the reason I say that because you hear it and you read it, and that's what the Battle of St. George might be. I'm not sure, but the biggest battle man has is the one with himself. It just is, and it's not easy, but it's written. It's written in all of the spiritual texts, all of them. The teachings are there. That's our biggest battle. So fucking level up. And look at yourself. And the only time you're going to do that is when you have peace and sit in the quiet. I mean, we get little messages throughout the day. We get little messages to make certain decisions. We get feelings. As you get older, let me tell you, as you get older, you know when you're getting prompted from, and it's only probably through meditation and connecting with Source. So if you're a spiritual teacher, you might say you're connecting with the universe. You might say you're connecting with Source. If you're, a Buddhist, you might say you're connecting with Buddha. If you're, if you're Christian, you say you're connecting with God or with Jesus. You might say you're connecting with Allah. It's all source. You're connecting with your source, your creator, your God. However you want to interpret that, the more you do that consciously, the better you get at receiving the messages throughout the day on take the right turn, go this way, go that way. You start to listen to your intuition, your inner ding, and you know the difference between the head and the heart. As you get older, though, I used to read this stuff and I just couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah. It's always there. It's just our heads elsewhere.
Always there. But don't worry, if you're not reading the signs, you'll hit the wall and learn the hard way. So we learn. Ultimately, we learn. And a lot of religious texts will say it is written. Your life is written. There's a certain path that we take, and I believe that to a certain point, but we have will. God has given us a brain. God has given us this ability to think and make choice and given us a will. So exercise it. Use it. Don't sit there playing PlayStation. Use it. Fucking use it. You've got it there. Don't hand your power over. There's this great story. You know the story of the prodigal son?
I've heard of it, yeah.
I heard it really explained really well by Guy Ritchie, the movie, the producer and writer, director, he on Joe Rogan. And the thing with the prodigal son, it's a religious story message, and it's the father. There's the father and the two sons. One of the sons is a really good boy and stays close to his dad and makes good decisions and does the right thing always. And the young son's a bit wild. He's a bit reckless. He's a bit of an adventurer. He's a bit crazy. And the father says to the boys, okay, boys, who wants to take their inheritance now and use it? But while I'm here before you die. And the old son goes, oh, no, Dad, I don't. I'll stick with you and look after you and work the farm. And the young son says, no, I will. Yeah, for sure. I'll spend it. I'll have a good time. So the young son goes off. He leaves and he's partying. He's going wild. He's drinking and taking drugs and going to strippers, and he's losing the plot. And the older son hears about his younger brother losing the plot. He runs out of money, and he ends up feeding pigs. That's his job. That's how he makes a living. And somehow his dad hears about it and gets in touch with him and says, son, are you okay? And he said, well, Dad, I'm not. I've spent my inheritance. I'm in a really bad place. And he said, son, do you want to come home? He said, yeah, I do. So he turns to the older son and goes, son, your little brother's coming home and go and kill the fatty calf and we're going to celebrate he's coming home. He goes, hang on a sec, Dad, you're going to celebrate it? Like, I've been a good boy. I've stayed right by you and I've done the right thing, and I've heard about my brother. He's been taking drugs and going to strippers and losing the plot, and we're going to celebrate him coming home because he spent all the inheritance. No, you'll be all right. You'll always be by my side, son. Just go kill the fatty calf. It's okay. The younger son comes home, hugs his dad. And his dad said, you were lost, now you're found. And that's the end of the story. But when you look at the meaning behind the story, it's all one person. The father's you. The eldest son is your intellectual self, knowing to make good decisions, do the right thing. The younger son is your part of yourself that is an explorer, that is adventurous, that is curious. It's not a bad thing. It's in us. So they're all you. But in this day and age, it shows us that we have to leave ourself to return to ourself, to know that we're enough. See, when we're young, we don't think we're enough. We're needing to impress the world, impress society with our worth, with our achievements, with our money, the things that we can do, the way that we look, our physique, our muscles. All of that's part of that. And it's when you give your power away and you tell the world or ask the world to tell you how good you are, and that's most of us. We're asking the world to tell us how good we are, and we're trying to show them by all these achievements. It's not bad. This is just part of the journey. It's not bad. But it's not until we realize that we're enough, that we're really enough, and we can accept ourselves and love ourselves fully and truly. That's when we return to ourselves. And I think that's a big part of this human experience and human journey in this lifetime. We do that. And it's okay. It's not bad. It's part of the journey. And it's just a great teaching and a great way to look at it and to go, it's okay. You did go out when you fucked up. It's okay. But you learn. You tested your limits. You tested your boundaries. It's okay. It's part of your wild self. It's all right. But know that what he thinks of you or she thinks of you, it's not important. It's what you think of you. It's the things you're telling yourself and what you think of you that's really important. And don't bullshit yourself, though. You know if you're being a CUNT. You know that you are. Don't bullshit yourself. So again, I think it's a journey in this human lifetime that we all take. So it's not until we can really return to ourselves and accept ourselves with our positive, with our negative, with our light, with our dark, with our imperfection. I mean, no one's perfect. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be here if we're perfect. No one's perfect. So it's accepting that, doing the best you can. Like you're on a good path, Nick. I can tell you got a great podcast. When we sat down, when we first started talking, it's like you said, the listeners are a lot of guys that are trying to turn up as their best self. That's enough. Doing that's enough. So if you're listening to this and you're that guy, I applaud you. And I send truly a lot of love to you because you're doing good stuff. You're doing good stuff. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And all this stuff is part of being human. The fucking up, the negative, the positive, it's all a part of being human. Do we ever get all the answers, Nick? Are we supposed to get all the answers? Maybe this life's just about living, just this human experience. Maybe it's just that. I don't have that answer yet, but I have a certain amount of answers to know what I need to do daily to be the best version of myself, to be able to look at myself in the mirror and tell myself that I truly love myself, not for my muscles, not for my accomplishments, not for my Mr. Universe, not for the car I drive, the school my kids, not for that, but to truly know, and this will sound very religious, but to know that I'm one of God's children. I'm not religious, and I'm here doing my best, and that's all I can do. So again, there would be so many teachings in the Bible, so many teaching in all of the spiritual books, but it's the teaching that you need to get. And I reckon all the teachings are the same. And we are spiritual beings having a human experience. If you're just doing your best, fucking that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this lately around the young men in society. You remember when you're 20, full of ego, you can do everything yourself. It's all on you, right?
It's fine.
And as you said, it is good to have that. But I also feel like it's important to understand like there is a higher purpose. There is God, whoever you define that out, because a lot of men do go down the path, it is all me. And then when shit hits the fan, they feel alone. And unfortunately, a lot of these men, like the suicide rates, 7 to 8 men a day because they feel like they're alone. But I believe if you're religious, spiritual, you just believe there's a higher power there that's giving you that hope and faith that everything's going to be okay, no matter how badly you stuff up, that's going to get a lot of men out of that rut because they do believe that they can get through it. I'm curious, what advice would you give to a 20-year-old that's lost right now, right?
When you hit the wall. And
he's hit the wall. He's not religious. He's not spiritual, but I feel like everyone needs to have an element of spiritual in them. How do they find that? Or does that find them?
Yeah, good question. I think that spiritual guidance and that I've been in the pit of depression. I've been there. Trust me. I've been in a place where there's not even a speck of light. I've been there. And did I think about jumping off the cliff or stringing myself up? I didn't think about that, but I was at a place where I didn't want to be here anymore. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I think it's a big step between that, not wanting to be here anymore, and taking action and doing something. I think it's a massive step. But that part of not wanting to be here anymore, like you said, there were two things you said, Nick, faith and hope. How do you cultivate faith and hope from such a dark place? It helps a hell of a lot if you have some religious teaching and you can go and talk to a holy man, whoever that might be, the priest or the holy man at the mosque or at the ashram or at the synagogue or wherever it might be. If you don't have any religion, as I didn't, it's almost like with depression for me, it was like just sitting and reveling in that dark place until I took the smallest steps to make things better. And that was with the chronic fatigue, that was simply walking in the park and being grateful to be able to walk in the park, having two legs, being able to, and again, I'd walk for 10 minutes, be exhausted, go back home and sleep. with that fatigue. It was terrible. But look for something, anything to be grateful for. So it's the same practices for me daily that ward off depression. They ward off depression. That is exercise, eating well, first thing in the morning, listing what you are grateful for. You can't be grateful and sad at the same time. Impossible. Look at what you've got to be grateful for. If you've got 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes that see, ears that hear, that's the biggest riches you could ever have. So be grateful for your health and talk to yourself over and over and over and be grateful for your health, grateful for your family, grateful for the roof over your head, grateful for the running water, grateful for the septic, grateful for food in the fridge. I mean, COVID's taught that the only good thing about COVID and the lockdowns was it taught us what was important. To family, grateful for the roof over their head, the food in the fridge, the power, the running water, the clean air. They are the things to be grateful for. So the young guys that are in a dark place, just move slowly. Don't think about where you have to be in 5 years or 10 years. All of the motivational speakers and business coaches will ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself now? Be present now. What do you have to be grateful for right now? Remind yourself of that right now. What do you have to be grateful for? I think that's a powerful thing. If you have the capacity to exercise, walk, just power walk. Get up early, go for a walk for 15 minutes if your health's limited, for 30 minutes, for an hour. Get up and walk. Write those things down that you're grateful for. Write it down 3 times a day, 4 times a day, 100 times a day. The more, the merrier. I think that know what you're going through as a process. An old cliche, when you're going through hell, what do? You don't fucking stop. You keep going. You have to keep moving. Shuffle if you have to. And again, I do all these things daily still to ward off depression. And it's fucking hard. Life is hard. Slowly, slowly, slowly. But focus on the good stuff. Focus on what you have to be grateful for. Move a little bit. Move. Keep moving. A little bit of exercise, a little bit of good food. Stay hydrated. A little bit of exercise, a little bit of food. Stay hydrated. I think that's probably the best advice. I mean, things will work out. They just will. If you practice these things, they will work out. You will get a job. You will be able to put food in the fridge. If you start with gratitude, exercise, and a little bit of clean living, good food, clean water, but good thoughts, gratitude, 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 gratitude. Be present, be grateful. You're in a dark place. That's okay. Be present. Sit in it. Feel it. It's okay. We've all been there. And I think everybody in this lifetime will go there. Everyone will. No one's getting out alive. No one's getting out alive, Nick. Everyone's going to go through the darkness. Everybody will. Even if you get to the point where I was, where there's no light, just fucking keep moving. Just keep moving. That would be my advice. Don't know how helpful that is.
No, that's amazing. And I believe we go through all different seasons within life, you know, some great, some not so great. But if you have the mindset of this is just a season.
Yep.
And understanding
Always.
that even if it isn't the best season, it's like, what lessons can I get through this that I can take into the next season? Because it's not going to last forever.
100%.
You mentioned gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, today, well, I'll tell you, today I don't have my gratitude journal, but I wrote in it this morning. I write in it pretty much every morning, pretty much. I'm grateful for my life, for this day, for this moment. That's how my day starts. Usually before I get out of bed, I'm grateful for my bed. They're my first thoughts when I wake up. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful to be able to get up at 4 a.m. I actually love getting up at 4 a.m. Even when I'm tired, I tell myself I love getting up at 4 a.m. When I sit down, I have some supplements first thing in the morning, some Pro Good for gut health and some colostrum, and make my coffee and sit down and do some meditation. That's how I don't fall back asleep, have a coffee and meditate. But I sit, I get very present, I can do it. My gratitude journal would be, I'm grateful for my life, for this day, for this moment, for my health, for my healthy, strong body, my creative, flexible body. I'm grateful for my family, my precious children, for my wife. I'm grateful for them every day. I'm grateful for our beautiful home, the roof over our head. I'm grateful. I sometimes write it. I'm grateful for the running water. I'm grateful for the food in our fridge, our electricity. I'm grateful for our vehicles that get us from A to B safely. I'm grateful for my work, my businesses. I'm grateful for all the people I work with and come into contact with. That's a strong intention for the day. I'm grateful to be here. I was grateful for you this morning. What else would I have written this morning? That's what I write. I write most of those things every day. And, you know, when you set that intention clearly and you set your mind, people talk about mindset, you set it. No one else does. You get that opportunity in the morning. Don't touch your phone. Don't turn on the news. Set your mind. Set your mind. Work on your mindset first thing in the morning. And that's why I like to get up before the rest of my house. Because the kids, you know, they get out of bed, they're 100 miles an hour. There's stuff going on, the TV's going on. I like getting up when it's quiet. I like getting up before the rest of the world has started. There's a lot of power at that time of the day. A lot of power. So that's what I'm grateful for. And they're the things I'm grateful for every morning. My gratitude journal is probably pretty boring to read because it would be very similar things most days. I'm grateful for the opportunities that come for the day. All good lies before me. I find that something I've used over the years are affirmations. I think affirmations are very powerful as well. So affirmations and incantations. So you say stuff like, I'm healthy, strong, and creative. That's how I count my reps in the gym. I don't count 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm healthy, strong, and creative. I'm healthy, strong, and creative. I'm healthy, strong, and creative. Each rep. I think affirmations are powerful. And I've used affirmations for a long time. I use them sometimes with meditation over and over and over, saying a positive affirmation to yourself. All good lies before me. Thank you for all good that lies before me. So I think affirmations are important. But again, it's the basics. That's what's important. Your health, your family, your opportunities, your home. They're all the important things to be grateful for. Grateful for my financial wealth. And again, what you're grateful for, you get more of. You get more of. And probably then if you do have a fight with your missus or a situation with your children, you don't suffer as badly. You probably see it from a detached point of view as well because you're grateful for them. You're grateful for your challenges. If you're grateful for your challenges, it's a big head start when you're dealing with some shit because you've already set the intention in the morning that you're grateful for them. You're going to get them in the day, sometimes small, minimal, easy to deal with, sometimes not so easy to deal with. But if you're grateful for them, you have a detached perspective as well whilst you deal with them. And, you know, if you don't get it right that day, like I said, I don't get the balance right every day, not even fucking close. Sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. But if I get the opportunity to get up the next morning and have another crack, you got to be grateful for that.
Yeah, it's the small things in life that a lot of people take for granted, which are actually the most precious.
Absolutely.
Man, this has been a very amazing conversation, Nick. You've shared so much knowledge and wisdom, and I appreciate you coming in here with an open mind and be able to share all that with not only myself but the listener. So
pleasure.
We have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And this one's probably the most interesting one I've had in a while. So the question for you is, if the voice in your head is you, then who is listening?
My conscious self is listening. My spiritual self is the voice. Yeah, and I know the difference. Sometimes it's the conscious voice in the head. Sometimes it's the ego and the conscious voice that's talking to me. I'm always on the lookout and always trying to stay plugged in to my spiritual self, to my higher self. And that higher self, my true self, is my connection to source, is my connection to God, my connection to the Creator. That's my true self. I'm trying to listen to those messages. They're the ones I'm trying to listen to. That's my true self. That's my higher self. But it's still a part of myself that's listening. It's part of my character. It's part of my human self. The spiritual self and human self are one in the same, but there's a distinction. The human self listens to the spiritual self and vice versa. So it's a really good question. It's a really good question. And then you say the conscious self and the subconscious self. That's just the brain and how the brain works. But the higher self, the true self, I believe the true self is the self that lives on. And the true self is the one that's connected to source. And that's if we can listen to that one. And it's always going to be both. It's always going to be our ego character that's calling some shots too. So it works both ways. It's we're complex. We're complex creatures from that perspective.
We definitely are.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you once again.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Nick. All the best. Everybody out there, all the best. Keep listening to this great man. He brings you great guests and he's asked some very insightful questions. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you.